Fox Business. I want to go to Josh Blackman, South Texas College law professor, also Cato Institute adjunct scholar. Josh, what do you make of this? I mean, the legalities of it leading up to this, and where do we go from here?
Well, Charles, thanks for having me. As a threshold matter, the president can fire Director Comey for whatever he wishes. But the fact of the matter is this was a very well coordinated and planned decision. Letters were sent from the Attorney General, from the Deputy Attorney General, and other high-ranking officials explaining that they did not have confidence in Mr. Comey in conducting investigations, not only for Clinton's emails, but all sorts of investigations. And as a result, they decided to go in a new direction.
I want to go, we got Jeff DeWitt, I think, on, former Trump campaign chief operating officer. Jeff, I would imagine that within the Trump administration, they were grappling with this. Blake Berman mentioned that even today, Sean Spicer said, yes, Director Comey enjoys the confidence of the president, but then hedging the last time we spoke. So this obviously had to be something that the administration's been grappling with for some time.
You know, Charles, these decisions are never easy. The FBI is one of America's premier investigative agencies, and doing something like this is obviously a major move. But I highly recommend for everyone to read the letter that memorandum sent earlier today from the Deputy Attorney General, Rosenstein, in which he lays out the case, very detailed, into the reasons why this was being recommended by the Deputy AG to get this done. And I think that really led to the decision happening today. But a lot of it comes back to what Tammy said, which is that Comey had started to litigate in the public, and he became a public figure. And it's really unprecedented what he did back in July, where he came out publicly and held a press conference basically laying out the case against Clinton and then saying, but I'm not going to do anything about it. And so we have to make sure that America trusts these agencies, and it really comes down to integrity. And really, I think it's a decision we were all waiting on to happen. We just didn't know when.
You know, also I think that his testimony and what we look back to on his misstating of the FBN emails is that it points to a sloppiness. This is not a conversation over dinner. He's testifying to Congress. This was a key element of the nature of how he was addressing FBN and everyone else in that regard. And he gets, now there were tens of thousands of emails, even perhaps over 100,000 on the laptop, but they had, not all of them had been forwarded. A handful had been. That is a huge difference when it comes to either a criminality aspect or the nature of the dynamic completely. And to that is what he was actually testifying. To get that kind of an element wrong, it kind of puts a cloud over all the decision-making, or at least everything that he's articulated to the public.
Another irony here, he's sort of the classic inside Washington player, where near the forefront of every single decision he made about how to handle this case was what he perceived to be in James Comey's political interest. And in pursuing that policy, he ended up upsetting along the line everyone and getting cashiered in a highly high-profile way.
Excellent
I want to go back to Jeff Landry, the Louisiana's Attorney General. And, you know, sir, we saw yesterday with the Sally Yates testimony, where she had her own interpretation of the Constitution, if you will, even so much so that she went against the President of the United States, thinking that she was doing the right thing. How does it, are there any guidelines for any Attorney General to determine how they interpret the Constitution and state of laws that are already on the books? Because I would think that the person who gets this job next is going to be under extraordinary pressure to walk a certain line.
Well, you're always supposed to presume that all of the laws passed by Congress are constitutional as the Attorney General. But what about,
orders, for instance, from the White House? In this particular case, it was the travel moratorium, or in the case of James Comey, there was a statute on the books for over 100 years, and he didn't think it was applicable because no one else had used it before.
I agree. Look, I think that's wrong. I mean, I think that if laws are on the books, they should be enforced. It's something that I say consistently. There has to be a rule of law, and that law must be followed. I think that Yates was wrong in the fact that she interpreted the president's executive order as being unconstitutional. That was not her job. Her boss was the president of the United States. Her job was to defend that executive order to the best of her ability. I think in Director Comey's position, he was in a very untenable position. He goes out out there and evaluates and collects that evidence, and then he presents it to the U.S. attorney, who at the time was General Lynch, and says, this is the evidence I have. Do you or do you not want to indict? And I think that that was the problem that he found himself in last year, where I believe the U.S. Attorney's Office certainly didn't want to do an indictment because of the political nature of it. And then he felt that he had to come out and reopen the investigation. Again, I think that it wasn't a matter of whether Director Comey was going to leave. It just was a matter of when that timing was going to be.
Okay, I want to bring in DeRoy Murdoch. He's joined us, the panel here. I think it's interesting, DeRoy, that we've heard Blake Berman and Josh Blackman say that this is obviously, quote, well coordinated. In other words, it wasn't, it wasn't a knee-jerk reaction to news today. And I think this is going to be critical from the political aspect to this, because Democrats will certainly seize on the idea that, hey, here was a guy who said hundreds of thousands of classified or potentially classified emails were sent from Huma Abedin to her husband, and had to tell the public days before the election when, in fact, it was only a few. So it feels like that part is critical to the story, because the political uproar on this over the next 24 hours is going to be amazing.
Well, the uproar is going to be interesting because I assume the Democrats who oppose everything Trump does will complain, oh, my God, Trump fired Comey. This is an awful thing. What a dictator, blah, blah, blah.
But they'll also say Comey cost Hillary the election.
That's exactly
unnecessarily. Why? Did he want to stay in his job if Trump won the election?
They have painted Comey as this great devil who cost Hillary Clinton her entitlement to the White House. And so they painted him in a very bad light. So it's going to put them in a very odd situation where now they're going to come out and defend the same man who they think is the person who kept Hillary Clinton in the private sector.
So how do you see it playing out? It's just going to be one of these things where the mainstream media will have one narrative, and you'll really have to do your homework to understand that apparently, and by the way, we're trying to get the other part of this, the letter that was sent to President Trump, the well-coordinated part, that this is something that they've been obviously considering for some time.
I think what you're going to see over the next few days is new tape or new images of the Democrats defending Comey as the latest victim of Trump, and you'll also have images from just a few days ago of Hillary Clinton saying this is the man who destroyed her campaign. I think they're going to be very, very schizophrenic on this.
Josh Blackman, you're the professor, you're the scholar, if you will, on these things. Do you see changes? Do you see changes in the job of Attorney General? See something happening here with respect to perhaps even a paradigm shift in the role because of in the aftermath of the James Comey saga, because it's been one hell of a saga.
It has. A few months ago, Judge Lawrence Silberman on the D.C. Circuit, who was a member of the Ford and Nixon administrations, wrote in the Wall Street Journal, quote, "Who the hell does Mr. Comey think he is? A legal Clark Kent emerging in tights from a very tall telephone booth to save the country?" And I think it's a very apt phrase. Comey, I think, took it upon himself to do what he thought was best for the country, not what was best for the rule of law and for the agency he headed. I think that in no small part is why Trump terminated him today.
All right, guys, once again, for the audience who's just now tuning in, President Trump has terminated Director Comey after the suggestion from the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General. Perhaps they all thought he was maybe a legal Clark Kent as well. We'll be right back. Breaking news right now, more details on President Trump's firing of FBI Director James Comey under the recommendation of Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Joining me now to discuss Josh Blackman, Tammy Bruce, Rich Lowry, DeRoy Murdoch, Mark Serrano, and Ned Ryan. Let's talk about potential replacements. You have an idea.
Well, this is not a prediction. This is really a nomination, and that is Rudolph W. Giuliani, former mayor of New York, an alumnus of the Department of Justice. He was a deputy attorney general, I believe, under Reagan, U.S. attorney here in New York City, a man who put away mafiosi, people on Wall Street who were involved in insider trading, and obviously somebody who's probably the most skilled and experienced counterterrorist in the country. He, of course, was very close to Trump. He was a Trump campaign surrogate, so that would raise a lot of questions. But apart from that, I think he'd be an enormously talented person to come in and clean up the mess at the FBI and restore confidence in that organization.
If you could abstract from the political environment, that would be a great pick. But I think Trump Trump with this pick has to go, and I say this about no pick ever, he has to go boring, he has to go respected, he has to go bipartisan. And Reagan had a choice like this with an FBI director late in his term. He went with Judge Sessions, who was respected by his critics, not a very exciting figure. He was criticized as being dull and plodding, but had the respect of all sides. And I think that's what's called here.
Lindsey Graham is weighing in. He's still one of the leading guys out there. He wants to see more of an investigation into Russia's interference, and of course, but he does support President Trump on this. And he goes out and says the next FBI director must be strong and independent, and will receive a fair hearing in the Judicial Committee. Let me go to Josh Blackman. Josh, what are your thoughts on this? This is an extraordinarily important decision for the next FBI director.
It really is, Charles. At bottom, the FBI director serves at the president's pleasure, and he's responsible for conducting many investigations and not just over Hillary's emails. And if the president decides that he's lost confidence in that director, the only remedy is to terminate him. But now we've moved to the other branch of government. To get another director confirmed, both Republicans and Democrats must agree on this person. So the Senate has a strong check on who the president picks to replace Comey. So this is more of a political decision than one of a constitutional nature.
Tammy, again, the discussion in D.C. on the political side will be the continued Russian investigation. James, and the next FBI director, do they have to pick that up?
Well,
no matter where it is. I mean, we keep hearing over and over there's no evidence. Nevertheless, they haven't closed it.
Well, this will be interesting because with so many political decisions coming from Comey's office, and with the president said in his letter, you have told me repeatedly that this is not an issue. Clapper yesterday said that we found no collusion, that maybe the next one will in fact be able to come to a conclusion and make a statement one way or the other. Whoever goes in is only going to be able to make that decision, seeing where it has been up to this point. And that's going to have to be a person, again, who's respected enough to whatever their decision is, especially to conclude it, is going to be accepted by everyone. Because at this point, we might as well be told that it was men from Mars that interfered with the election, and no one's going to believe it until someone they trust tells them that's not true.
Yeah, Mark Serrano, it is absolutely amazing that it's dragged on this long. And we've had all of these hearings, and so many people go to Capitol Hill, and they can't say much because of secrets and classified material, but they can tell us nothing at all. In other words, they've not been able to connect any dots officially yet.
No, and so this is the Democrat strategy, Charles. Continue to talk about Russian collusion because it keeps everyone off balance, and continue to pressure Republicans to either recuse themselves or step away from investigations. They were successful, in the House. And so they're going to continue. They were successful with pressuring Sessions to do it, and that's their entire strategy. Get Republicans to cower, but they have not seen the very beginning of Donald Trump deal with them on this issue. He's going to continue counterpunching against them, and I think he's going to get very, very creative with this appointment to the FBI. I think he's going to make it very difficult. Frankly, I wish he would take a look at Senate Democrats so we can get one of those and get one vote, pushed in his direction.
Ned Ryan, we got to communicate from Senator Edward J. Markey of Massachusetts. It goes on to say, quote, this episode is disturbingly reminiscent of the Saturday Night Massacre during the Watergate scandal and the national turmoil that it caused. We are careening ever closer to a constitutional crisis, and this development only underscores why we must appoint a special prosecutor to fully investigate any dealing the Trump campaign or administration had with Russia. Ned, are you shocked at this communique?
The drama.
Tuesday Night Massacre.
This is ridiculous. Again, such a hyperbolic statement. Please get some perspective. FBI director serves at the pleasure of the president. He's completely lost the confidence of the president. I think the thing that Trump's going to have to do, Charles, is, a lot of people at the Bureau have been embarrassed by Comey's behavior. They feel that he's politicized this way too much. He's got to find somebody, as the other panelists have been saying, that can put the trust back in the Bureau, that it's not going to be overly politicized, that it's actually going to play it straight, that you're not going to see. Charles, I want to have an FBI director who I don't see in the press every day, and so we've got to have somebody that's serious, respected by both sides. But I will say this, they keep on going after this Russia thing. It's like the binky they put themselves to sleep with at night. There's nothing there. It comforts them to help them put to sleep, but it keeps them from the reality of why they've lost and why they keep losing.
Yeah, maybe an FBI director who's not going to Hollywood premieres, although we understand that FBI's image could use a major shot in the arm. Josh, let me ask you this, though. What would be wrong with a special independent prosecutor or investigator into this to really perhaps come to a conclusion that would be irrefutable by both sides and put it to bed forever?
Well, thanks to the Watergate investigation, we no longer have a truly independent prosecutor. Any special prosecutor serves at the pleasure of the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, who I think would have to recuse because it involves Russia, so it goes back to Rod Rosenstein. So any special prosecutor we have would not be truly independent and would not make anyone happy. But one note on the Saturday Night Massacre, Nixon didn't actually fire anyone. People don't quite appreciate this. Nixon had asked some of his subordinates to fire the special prosecutor, so the analogy really doesn't even fit.
All right, Tammy, what do you make of it? I mean, they're coming quickly.